Welcome back to the Grand Solar Minimum channel. Today is Wednesday, September 12th, 2018. Let's get right into it. Got a couple things I want to talk about tonight. Last few nights we've been focusing on Hurricane Florence, which that is still of focus. I have an update on the current stats on Florence, but a couple things that I wanted to go over tonight, just a couple of Grand Solar Minimum related topics. First, let's get into our space weather. We're looking at solar wind speeds at 498.1 with a density of 7.3. Take a look at our sun, and that spot that we caught last night on the broadcast that was indicating activity is AR 2722 now. Sunspot number 14, which only ended a one-day stretch of 0 spots. So we are still sitting at 142 for the total days without spots. And looking at our KP indices, we are sitting at a 3 with a 24-hour max of a 3 as well. And let's go ahead and look at the SDO in motion. Here we have that sunspot that we were referring to, this one right here. It has maintained its activity and will continue to be a sunspot. Not a very big one, not a very strong one. And also, if you noticed, it is in the correct area for solar cycle 24. In fact, a little bit below the equatorial region. Also, checking out this next coronal hole, that should be just minor solar wind increase. Not expecting any G1 activity or anything like that. And then taking another look here on the eastern limb, keep our eyes on this particular region here. We might be seeing another active region beginning to form as well, but definitely one looks like it's over the eastern limb of our star. So a lot going on with the sun, not as far as activity, but possibilities. Let's just put it that way. And taking a look at our TSI reading for September 4th, 2018, the last reading came in at 1360.742. I wanted to read this article real quick. It's just interesting because Fox News is just trying to report and you decide, and this is where I come in, I guess. But I'll quickly get through this article. It says hundreds of mummified penguins in Antarctica have been found, a sign that penguins died because of 2 extreme global warming events over the past 1,000 years, according to a new study. Now, this study is published in the Journal of Geophysical Research, and the link is here in the article. But it says, based upon chronological and sedimentary evidence, we propose that 2 events were caused by heavy regional precipitation, which led to the abandonment of numerous penguin subcolonies. The anomalous precipitation was likely associated with intensification of regional meridional air transport under a zonal wave number 3 pattern. The abstract added that since these types of atmospheric conditions corresponded to present-day observations and are expected to persist if climate change continues, the mortality events revealed in the study could become an increasing threat to penguins. It goes on to tell some stats about the population, how many we have right now. We're about 4.7 million of these Adele penguins. And this scientist this author from this paper, the lead author, Live Science, he works as well. And he says here that it's quite likely that global climate warming caused enhanced precipitation. Remember that. Quite likely that global climate warming caused enhanced precipitation. Adding that mass penguin grave is a rare find, especially mummified chicks. The penguins that were found here in this picture here are from 2016. And the last paragraph is kind of what perturbed me, I guess, a little bit. Generally, it's believed the current global warming trend will continue or even worsen. He added that this would cause more precipitation in Antarctica, which would likely increase the chances of such mass death amongst these penguins. Now, I wanted to point out that these penguins that they found were dated back 750 years ago and 200 years ago. Both of these periods that we're talking about, one, after further research, the 750 year, well, that's right around the Wolf minimum. And then the 200 year, well, that's Dalton. But yet this article cites, and again, he's just quoting what the lead author that is reporting in this paper. But the lead author is telling us that the reason for precipitation intensification was because of global warming. And what I find great, what's odd about this, these periods of time were right in the beginning of these minimums. Like what we're in right now. We're in the beginning of the next grand solar minimum. We're declining to it anyway. So I find it interesting that what we present on this channel, what we talk about, lines up with two other minimums that this paper, in a way, is straight up lying here. This guy is telling you that global warming was associated with increased precipitation, but now that we know that these die-offs happened during 750 years ago and 200 years ago, well, this makes sense. Increased cosmic rays during these grand minimums, weaker magnetosphere, more cloud nucleation, more precipitation, just like we're seeing right now. Not just with Florence or Harvey, but storms worldwide. We're seeing these storms on a regular basis. And yes, we did enter a warming period. In 2016, you could say we stopped the warming totally. Or it was a warming pause. Other people will tell you that. It was a warming pause. However you want to look at it. The warming has definitely stopped. We are trending towards the cooling area. And coincidentally enough, part of the reason I believe that we've seen such a reversal in temperatures is because we're going through this natural solar cycle. And each day, each month, each year that goes by since 2016, these papers are looking to be as proven correct. Because these papers are telling us that during these events that we're going to see cooler temperatures with less sunspots. And it's explained exactly what's going to happen with cloud nucleation and precipitation increase. So I just find it funny that all the science that this particular individual is referring to lines up with what happens during minimums. And could it be that the case or the culprit here, the guilty party, would be the minimums that help participate in causing this and not warming? Just got your facts a little twisted. Still an interesting story, good read. This article, this is a letter, guys. This is damning. This is something that says it all. I'll go back and scroll a little bit. This is a great little article here. I found a little blog here, Deplorable Science Climate blog, talking about the Exxon New campaign. And this individual decided, let's go back in time and look at all of these claims that we were getting from people in the 70s. The threat of new ice age must be now staying alongside nuclear war as a likely source of wholesale death and misery for mankind. A little dark there. But you see it's everywhere. Ice age cometh. This was dated back March 1st of 1975. Chicago Tribune. New ice age on the way soon? ? March of 75. More articles here. This is from the New York Times in 78 before they told a bunch of lies. An international team of specialists has concluded from 8 indexes of climate that there is no end in sight to the cooling trend, at least the last 30 years, at least in the northern hemisphere. Another article here talking about more... Here's the temperature change in the 30s to the late 40s, as we see the declination there. Sharp drop off into the 70s. And I always remember hearing from my father talking about how, the summers when he was a kid, he grew up in the 50s and 60s, the summers were hot and the winters were cold. So this is, this is typical for what he's used to. And right now I feel like we're getting back into that pattern of hot summers and cold winters. At least that's what this year's felt like so far. But this one steals it all, folks. This is a letter to the President of the United States in 1972, which would probably mean Nixon was still in office at this point. Either way, it says, this is from the Department of Geological Science at Brown University. So this isn't ITT Tech or DeVry or anything like that. This is an Ivy League school, very, very well respected. And it says, aware of your deep concern with the future of the world, we feel obliged to inform you on the results of scientific conference held recently. The conference dealt with the past future changes of climate and was attended by 42 top American and European investigators. We enclose the summary report published in Science, and further publications are forthcoming. It says here the main conclusion on the meeting was that a global deterioration of climate by order of magnitude larger than any experienced by civilized mankind is very real possibility, and indeed may be due very soon. The cooling has a natural cause, it states, and falls within the rank of processes which produced the last ice age. This is a surprising result based on largely on recent studies of deep sea sediments. Existing data still do not allow forecast of the precise timing of the predicted development, nor the assessment of man's interference with the natural trends. It could not be excluded, however, that the cooling now underway in the northern hemisphere is the start of an expected shift. The present rate of the cooling seems fast enough to bring glacial temperatures in about a century if continue on the present pace. Now, this is in 1972, and we've talked about 2030 to 2050 is when we really think that we could see Earth's coolest temperatures in a long, long time, and from there on out, it could get even worse. So really, we're entering into an unknown charted territory right now. But I find it interesting that even here, 1972, the present rate of cooling seems fast enough to bring glacial temperatures in about a century. And roughly, this paper is semi-accurate. That's what a lot of people are saying right now. Right about a century from this time is when we could see the next possible ice age. The practical consequences which might be brought by such developments to existing social institutions are among others. First, ye labels substantially lowered food production due to the shorter grow seasons and changed rain distribution in the main grain producing belts of the world, with Eastern Europe and Central Asia to be first affected. Increased frequency and amplitude of extreme weather, which is happening right now, anomalies such as those bringing floods, snowstorms, and killing frost, etc. These are the warning signs of what's to come. In my mind, this letter is when we see this stuff right here, and it's happening now, and it makes you wonder if it's too late when you see this. But this to me is the flare that signals what's going to happen. Then it goes into with this, camaraderie. Let's all work together and trying to figure out the solution. But down here at the bottom, the last thing they highlighted here, it says, it might also be useful for the administration to take into account that the Soviet Union, with large scientific teams monitoring the climate change in the Arctic and Siberia, may already be considering these aspects in its international moves. Therefore, just like what a lot of us say in the Grand Solar Minimum community, the Russians know. They know what's coming. Their government has been in preparation for this. There's no bones about this. They know. But this is, to me, one of the most damning pieces of paper from this era. And you're saying, well, yeah, it's just a letter. It's not a peer-reviewed paper. But this is a suggestion from the Department of Geological Science at Brown University, a very well-respected university, nonetheless. And I just find it strange how the red flag was being thrown almost 100 years ago, more than half a century ago now, as we come closer to 2020. And we saw this warming happen. And it's like the scientific community was embarrassed that they said anything about cooling back in the 70s and just buried it and swept it under the rug. Well, now everything that they were talking to the president about here in 1972 is happening. And I believe that this is our cue. Taking a look at some news across the seas real quick before we get to our local weather, because we got a lot to talk about tonight on Florence. Unprecedented rainfall hits Beirut, causing its worst flooding in years. Torrential rains hit the capital Beirut, population's 2.2 million on September 9th, causing the worst flash flooding in this Mediterranean city has ever seen. The road connecting to Tripoli in the Denon region was turned into a river with water about 3 feet deep in some places. Raging floodwaters damaged homes, cars, and infrastructure, and acres of agricultural land. The northern Denon area was unprepared for torrential rains Sunday that caused the worst flooding in years, bringing the area to a standstill. We're really surprised, quoted Fat. That's this guy's name. His name is Sammy Fat. I like it. We're really surprised, said Fat. This amount of rain at this time of year is unprecedented. We're trying to ensure the next time this happens, we'll be prepared. Well, that's just it. Unprecedented weather event. How can you prepare for this? Are we just going to have to say, look, we're entering this time of our climate cycle where we have to be ready for stuff like this? Mari's made a very good observation tonight. We were watching coverage of Hurricane Florence, and the comment she was making was, I can't believe how much more prepared that we've become for Florence versus when you look what happened with Harvey. So, and this is the worst part about these severe flooding events, these flash floods. The flooding caused a river of garbage flowing through the streets of Beirut, just showing one of the ugly sides of the city's incapability to deal with disposal of its waste in 2015 when the country's main landfill site closed due to overuse. And take a look at this, guys. In sort of kind of a related news here, if we can get the spins to go away. We had a slaughterhouse, I think it was in North Carolina or South Carolina, I can't remember exactly. Well, we'll leave the link in the description. You can check out the link for that. But we were, they were talking about a slaughterhouse and its waste, and what happens if it floods and gets into the water and the drinking water and you know our areas of rivers and floods and creeks and neighborhood streets and all that bacteria and God knows what that's in that waste. That's another strong concern when you have all this storm surge talk and all this overflowing. Monster Cat 5 Super Typhoon Mancut to cross the North Luzon Saturday morning, the most intense tropical system of the year so far. That's the third time I've heard that. I guess they just didn't know that they could get worse. Here's the thing. This is where people need to slow down and take their time when reading stats. I saw a video earlier where an individual said that we were looking at 250 knots on the wind speed. And I could see where he thought that. There's a K right here. Maybe he was just reading it really fast and didn't see the M next to it. Knots, if I'm not mistaken, is KTS, I think. Anyway, he does a report and says that we had 287 mile an hour winds with this storm. It's unfortunate that so many who are very good at communicating a message, making that kind of mistake can be very scary, because I know I have people who have came to me who had special interest in this storm because they have loved ones that were in the way of this storm. And now I'm just kind of attached to the storm because of how big and how scary this thing is. We talk about Florence right now, and this thing is heading for Taiwan and then China right after that. And it's a powerful Cat 5. Nonetheless, no 287 mile an hour winds, but we are seeing winds gusting up to 210 miles an hour with sustained maximum winds of 175 miles per hour. So again, for all those who thought the report of 287 mile an hour winds had happened during the storm, it was obviously a slight misread. He misspoke. He didn't realize it was kilometers per hour and not knots. He thought he was reading that in knots, and that's not what that scale was saying. But it happens. So, I'm not trying to embarrass the guy, but, we got to take our time with this stuff, because there's the facts are scary enough, and then to put some kind of a fear title out with some really ridiculous claim of almost a 300 mile per hour wind. That's something you really got to vet before you let that information out there, because that could scare a lot of people, especially if you're known worldwide, which I'm sure this guy is. He's got lots of subs. So, but yeah, I just wanted to share this real quick, show everybody this is a strong storm nonetheless. 210 mile an hour gust ain't nothing to play with. This is the track heading towards Taiwan this weekend, and then heading towards China after that. Probably landfall sometime early Monday into Tuesday possible. But another major system in our oceans. And we've talked a little bit about Hurricane Helene and how I've said, it's just going to be in the Atlantic and move away from the States. Well, that's true. It's not going to be an issue for us in the States. But now they're kind of keeping an eye on this for the British Isles and areas in this region here. Nothing what we're looking at for Florence or anything like that, but this could be what they call an extratropical storm, so it could drive a lot of heavy rain, a lot of winds. The weather is kind of that's just sloppy weather up there, and parts of this area here in Europe, Spain, France, Italy, we're going to see a really strong heat wave this week. So I'll be curious to see if this storm helps clear the way to get that heat wave out or not. But they are now watching this storm as a potential issue for heavy rain and high winds, could possibly cause some damage with flooding, but we will keep our eyes on this as well. This weather page here, severeweather.eu, very popular on Facebook. I see them every day and just visited their website and just wanted to kind of use a couple articles from there today. Very well put together, very nice. We've actually caught some interesting looking images from their website, so just another tool in the toolbox for us to use here for us to figure out what's going on for sure. And I think I have some pictures that I want to share with you guys from Florence. These were taken on September 9th from the International Space Station. Absolutely incredible storm. Also, with that being said, we have some reports of this being the biggest storm to hit the coast above the South Carolina line. And I think that also was another mention of size and not so much intensity of storm like a Cat 4 or anything like that. But these satellite images are absolutely mind-blowing. Today I saw somebody put in perspective about how big this storm was, that you can put 4 states of Ohio and it would just about fit in the size of the storm. So that's pretty impressive. But before I go any further tonight, I wanted to talk real quick about 2 other big storms. That Florence is not the biggest storm to hit land. Look at that. This is Hurricane Sandy. Absolute crazy. Look at the size of, we all remember Sandy. The big old right before Halloween storm, winds of 115 miles per hour. They got the death toll here, which we don't really want to go into that. I just wanted to show that Sandy was a massive storm, and look at the damage that it caused on the way up. So we had Sandy, and then we also had Hurricane Hazel in 1954, which also hit land as a Cat 4, I believe. Let's go check that out real quick. Yep, here we go. One of the strongest Category 4s to ever hit the North Carolina coast. So this was an actual Category 4 folks. We had winds sustained at 135. Death toll is estimated around 400 to 1,000. They said that on the 14th of October, they saw maximum winds of 150 miles per hour still. And that's right before landfall. 150 miles per hour. So think about that. I'm going to give you an update right now on Hurricane Florence. There she is. The latest on her is this. we are looking at a Category 3 storm with some recent flare-up development on the eastern side of this storm and also the southern part of this as well. But as of right now, we have maximum winds of 115 miles per hour. It is considered a Cat 3 storm. And also, the central pressure has been slightly rising as well. We're at 956, up from 948 millibars. And the one thing that I've noticed on the track of this forecast, as this slowly deteriorates into a lower level Cat 3 hurricane, the size of this thing has increased. Look at the last part of this run here on this model up near the coast. How the activity just expands incredibly fast. So there's a silver lining, but it's a double-edged sword as well. We've got the storm deteriorating as it gets closer to land, but it's also slowing down. It's at about 15 miles per hour, heading northwest right now. But also, as it deteriorates, it's expanding right now. So that means we're going to have more tropical winds and a widespread more area than what we originally were going to have. This storm is still powerful. They're forecasting this to be now a Cat 1 at landfall. And yesterday and other days before that, a lot of folks thought this was going to be a Cat 4. I actually had a source, which I won't name because I know he hates it when I do that, but he told me accurately where this storm was going to hit and what the category was going to be, and he's been pretty much right on. Even though we were in more intense, he said it was going to be a Cat 2, which right now that looks pretty accurate. Maybe a strong Category 1, but the Cat 2 forecast has held up even when it looked like it was going to be a Cat 4 or a Cat 3 because of the hype of the media. They've been bored all summer long. They haven't had a storm to talk about, and then they just see this one, and it's massive, it's huge, and there's some impressive stats about it. But now we're starting to see the reality of this, in which thankfully it's starting to deteriorate, but not enough. A Cat 3 is still disastrous. The flooding is going to be insane. There's parts of North Carolina that are going to see 9 foot or more of surge. I know Myrtle Beach is going to be in that 6 foot range. And most of this area right up in here is where we're talking about for the 9 foot. It's not a widespread area, so it's nothing to get too panicky about. But I just wanted to bring it up that Florence, as impressive as the size of a hurricane this thing really is, she's not the biggest to hit this side of the United States. However, that still doesn't mean that this thing isn't messing around, because its strength and its size was solid enough to where we're talking about it now as it continues to affect the coast more and more as we speak. And the bigger concern is how much coastal flooding are we going to see. And I've heard a couple of people on the Weather Channel echo what I've said. The further away from the coast you are, the better it will be, even though that they're expecting rainfall totals for those out there in the for those of you in the inland part of the coast. They're still looking at some high rain. And let me go ahead and show you guys real quick. I lost my way on this. Forgive me, folks. I had a graphic that I thought I had pulled up for you guys. I did want to look at this. Here we go. The storm surge. This is the rain area right here. The dark purple bullseye. That's over 20 inches of rain is expected here throughout North Carolina, most of North Carolina. And look at the entire state of South Carolina, at least receiving 4 inches. Most of the state is going to get about 6 or more. And a good chunk of the state is going to get anywhere from 10 inches and above. And even in the Appalachians and the mountainous areas, we're going to have to look out for heavy rain and localized spots. We could see anywhere from 6 to 8 inches of rain on some of the mainland here, and also localized areas inland of 12 inches of rain. Plus, we got to deal with the wind. So if you already have saturated ground, high winds, trees are going to be uprooted. There's going to be roof damage. There's going to be property damage on the inland. But the biggest concern, absolutely right now, is those who are, for some reason, still on the coast. Anyone who is there now, this is your last chance to get out of there before things get too hairy for any kind of escape. A lot of folks are being urged to leave tonight, no later than. Let's take a look at the storm. Okay, I understand. Again, the area, here is the area in a storm surge warning right now. You see large chunks of North Carolina in this part here. Wilmington, Jacksonville, North Carolina, that is. Charleston, South Carolina. Also Myrtle Beach. They are in the storm surge watch. But the way this storm is moving, guys, and what they're forecasting for Florence, and there's the recent development, we see here, and then more intense right here at the last second. So this storm is still dangerous. It's big. It may be deteriorating in speed, and size is increasing, and some of the conditions may be deteriorating. But this storm is still going to cause some major problems with the coast and flooding. All right, let's take a look now at the latest GFS model run. We have landfall Thursday night into Friday morning in the areas of Wilmington, North Carolina. The storm does look like it's going to stall out Friday, travel just a little bit to the south of South Carolina. Now, this storm, this model run right here actually has it going inland by Monday and moving up through the northeast and out the door. And look what else we don't have to worry about. That's right. That storm that we saw last night. And also I saw it again today when I was looking at this before 8 o'clock. But that low pressure system does not develop. I hope that this GFS model is telling the truth, because this looks way better than previous thought. Here we are. This is Sunday night. The storm is already starting to break up, move further inland. And mainly North Carolina is going to get the most heavy amounts of rain. Raleigh, North Carolina, and Virginia. Now, as this storm continues to move inland, it goes closer to Kentucky, eastern Tennessee, and almost up. Well, actually, it does touch the southern part of Ohio and through western Pennsylvania into New York and western New York, upstate New York into New England, and out the door it goes. Without the development of that other low that we saw yesterday and earlier this afternoon, because I did run that model again, and it was still showing up as a storm that could possibly develop. But here we see several rounds of precipitation and a cold front here that just sweeps through and knocks everything out. High pressure dominates the Midwest, and Friday, September 28th will be the best day, hopefully, according to this radar, that we ever had in the United States in the last few weeks. It's been raining, flooding somewhere, and there looks like one day next week or one day in the near future where this big cold front will swing through and just keep some clear weather out for us. But so this is encouraging. We're still going to see lots of coastal flooding, lots of coastal damage, and lots of inland flooding for North Carolina. But what this model is suggesting is that it's not going to travel as far south, and right now it's also not showing that stalling technique, which we're still getting predictions though, and this is what's kind of concerning, I guess, too. We're still getting predictions of anywhere from 12 to 24 inches of rain in these areas. So thankfully, along with storm surge, we're looking at 20 plus inches of rain on the coast right here. Can imagine what would happen if this system did truly what they thought it was going to do in the first place, and that's stall out right in this area, move a little bit south, and then come in inland, shoot back up this way. And, as close as we are to landfall, there's still a lot of uncertainty. I've been watching the Weather Channel because they've been pretty much covering this thing nonstop all week. And they still act like there's still a lot of uncertainty to the storm still. Even though it's making a closer approach to landfall, there's still a lot of uncertainty. So still plenty to watch for. But it looks like the governor of North Carolina and South Carolina did the right thing by prepping early. And it's like Mari said, the best part about this time around with this kind of a weather event is that it looks like we finally learned a lesson from Harvey and Irma and Maria, and that is to prep. When you hear these types of storms coming through and we have experts that are warning us, take the necessary steps to get yourself to safety. But man, look at the Atlantic. We are busy with Florence. Joyce will be a fizz here soon. Helene might go to the western part of the British Isles. Isaac is a very weak tropical storm right now. It is not a hurricane. If it does make it, though, this was another thing I wanted to mention real quick. If Isaac happens to make it, are we going to see that 1-2 punch in the Gulf that I was speaking of? And I'm talking about Invest 95L right here that could develop here in the next couple days. And then we've got Isaac, who's been a weak storm. I mean, this has been consistent. Isaac blows up and it gets weak. But if Isaac continues to trek through and it survives, and there is a cone on this, by the way, and I want to find that cone. There is a cone that they've given Isaac that I found interesting because 2 days ago we weren't seeing this. If you look here at the tail end of this, you'll start to see the cone slightly start to go north, as it's been doing a beeline to the west the whole time. And here at the end, we have some indication that if this storm is still around, that it could possibly get into the Gulf, where it could have some rapid intensification because of how warm the waters are right now as well. Let's see. Did I go through everything? Yeah, Isaac. Oh, another one real quick. Olivia. And I don't see anything on Olivia here on Mike's weather page, but we were, oh, here it is. We had seen the report on the Weather Channel, and right now it's just bringing a lot of heavy rain. It's a tropical storm. That's its current location. It did pass over the smaller islands of Hawaii, so we will be looking out for any reports of damage or flooding at that point. So it looks like Olivia has already went through and is going to be a non-factor, hopefully very, 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 very soon. And with that being said, I think I'm ready to have it. Oh, let's take a look at our water temps. Very odd. They didn't really warm up. They almost registered the exact same as they were yesterday, and I refreshed it to make sure that I wasn't doing it wrong. And we have the Nino index stayed at the 268 mark above baseline. And then we had our tropical east. This is another reason why storms are dying out in the east tropical Atlantic. We're at negative 0.662 Celsius below baseline as far as temperatures go right now. Very, very cool waters right now. So it's really hard for any kind of storm to be thrown off the coast of Africa and survive that trek all the way here to the States. And then the North Atlantic's been kind of hovering right around that negative 0.5 value below baseline, but slightly, ever so slightly going up to 0.423 as of now. And other than that, that's pretty much what I wanted to show off tonight as far as, here's another cool image of the storm Mari had found for me. I guess I'm going to go ahead and just leave this up as I ask Mari to say hello to our GSM crowd tonight, checking in and see how everybody's doing. Mari, how's we behaving?
Everyone's behaving. Jake, another fine broadcast by you. Yeah, we have Radical Gardener in here, Rob, all kinds of people in here. And I'm just coming up with different names for Rob because people are asking Rob in the chat if he has a channel. And I just like, he's like the Mr. Miyagi at GSM. And he actually said he prefers to be more like Angus MacGyver of GSM. Other than that, you haven't missed a lot. We're just, BSing like we do. I love you guys in the chat. So hello to all you mysteries in there. We got a lot of new faces. Cheryl, David, a lot of people in the chat. Not bad for a Wednesday
Not
night.
bad at all.
Give us a thumbs up and we got 29 likes. We got a lot of people watching. Come on, people.
All right, guys. Appreciate everyone tuning in tonight as well. Hello to the new people out there. Glad to see Rob and Radical Gardener out there and others who are here almost nightly with us. And we really appreciate the support. And I know you guys are helping getting the message. And I think, people like Radical Garden, she knows us. Rob knows us really well. Starman knows us well. Henrik, others as well. Miss C Gypsy. Sometimes I might speak on something, and maybe those folks will understand what I'm saying and help clear it up for me in the chat. And that's what, that's the kind of support I appreciate. Especially, I know Rob's doing it the whole time I'm doing broadcasts, so I'm sure there's things that I do misspeak on. But thanks to people like you guys who are willing to be patient, and getting it right is important, and it's always been important for me as well. So I just really appreciate everybody's input and how everybody likes to work together and try to make sure that we all are doing this responsibly and accurately as well. One more look at the cone of hazard here. This was from 5 p.m. earlier today. A lot of them had this storm forecasted as a Category 4. It strengthened to a 3. It went down to a 3 and then going back up to a 4 before hitting to a 2 before making landfall. It's still a major hurricane. We're still going to have lots of swell. We're still going to have lots of storm surge. We're going to have tons of rain, tons of wind, lots of damage. So anyone who is left, don't think that just because we've seen the storm deteriorate just a little bit, that means that we're off the hook. We've got a long way to go. Tomorrow's only Thursday, and we don't expect to see landfall for this until Friday morning. So lots to still discuss. Guys, we'll be back tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Please like and share, and we will talk soon, guys. Take care.